Trauma has many faces. It can stem from childhood, broken relationships, loss, illness, or moments that change everything. For each person, trauma leaves an imprint, shaping how they see themselves and the world. In turning your trauma into your testimony, the healing journey, we bring you real stories of individuals who have confronted their pain and are finding a way forward. Each episode delves into a unique journey, a path through sorrow, strength, and self discovery. Their testimonies remind us that while trauma may change us, healing can help us redefine who we are. These are their stories, these are their healing journeys. Now, have you ever experienced trauma in any form, whether that's childhood abuse, domestic violence, loss, or even cultural and intergenerational pain? This is a safe space for you to share your story, connect with others, and find the support needed. Join us as we build a community of healing and understanding, where your journey is honored and your voice truly matters. Now, this episode and other episodes contain discussion of sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including various forms of trauma such as abuse, loss, and violence. Listener discretion is advised. Please prioritize your mental and emotional well being. And if you find any part of this content to be distressing, consider pausing or seeking support. Today, we are joined by Ulla Marshall, a courageous woman who's navigated the emotional challenges of the foster care system and turned her pain into a powerful tool for and empowerment in education. After reconnecting with her foster parents after more than 20 years, Ulla faced unexpected negativity and a harsh truth that deeply impacted her healing journey. Yet through therapy, community, and self reflection, she has transformed her story into a source of strength and hope for others. Join us as Ulla shares her insights in overcoming adversity, embracing self worth, and addressing the lasting effects of the foster care practices. Hello, Ulla.
Hi, and thank you, Cami. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for deciding to share your story with us. So, Ulla, what I'd love for you to do, my very first question is always is tell us your story. You take the reins from here. Tell us where you've been through. I mean, what you've been through, where you are now, and how far you've come to overcome all of that.
Okay. Okay. So basically, I was fostered when I was born in 1968, and my foster parents were in and out of my life for the first 10 years. And it was what I thought was quite a pleasant experience. Didn't have much to sort of do with them for the next 10 to 15 years of my life. And then when I got into my 40s, I was on Facebook and I got a message that they were looking for me. And that really made me happy. And I sort of reconnected with them and our relationship started again. And in the meantime, my sister, who, she's no longer with us, but she also reconnected with them. And it was all very lovely. And then unfortunately, during this sort of reconnection, she died. And that's when things started to sort of change with my relationship with them. Um, I also have a third sister who was never fostered by anybody. She did her whole sort of childhood experience with my mum. But after my sister died, she sort of became involved with my foster father. Um, the death of my sister brought about a lot of stress in our family. And I don't know what happened, but my foster dad sort of saw it as a way. I don't know why, but I don't know why he did this, but he sort of saw it as a way to sort of come between our sort of family. And the end result was that me and him ended up sort of not speaking, but he took my younger sister with him. So we don't have a relationship anymore. So I don't have a relationship with my sister. I don't have a relationship with him or any members of his family. Um, Considering that they'd had me from when I was 6 weeks old, I obviously was very attached to them. And the way that our relationship sort of broke, it was just very traumatic. It sort of caused me a lot of anguish, a lot of pain, and yeah, no, it was hard. So out of that, during my sort of work as a teacher, I encounter a lot of children that are sort of go through the sort of foster care system. And since moving back to London, I've encountered a lot of black kids that have been in foster care, that have moved through the system, that have sort of put with families that aren't sort of culturally connected to them, as I wasn't culturally connected to my foster parents. And from what happened with my parents, my foster parents, and myself, I decided to sort of look at a way to sort of keep kids culturally connected as they go through the system. Because one of the things that happened to me was I was placed with a white family, and not once did they ever consider my culture as they were rearing me. So that has caused me a lot of difficulty as I was growing up. It's quite hard to talk about because it's a sort of a thing that I don't know if it ever happened in the States. I don't think it ever did happen in America, but over here in the 1950s and 60s, a lot of African sort of colonials that were, my parents came from Ghana, that came to work and study in this country. They didn't have backup or care. So they sort of relied on a system that was founded, I don't know how it was founded, but a system that sort of relied on our parents advertising us in newspapers for like care, and then white families answering and then taking us in and bringing them up, or bringing us up with their families. And it was a lottery draw because it depended on which family you got. The family that I got consisted of two sort of 20-year-olds. They were a couple. They lived with their mum and dad. And because their parents, my dad allowed me to go and live with them. And that's how I ended up with them. It was a sort of a confusing and sort of hard time. No, it was difficult, and it's sort of upsetting that we sort of came together for a little bit, and then when my sister died, it all sort of I don't know, it just ended really badly. It was just traumatic knowing that the people that had brought you up could sort of reject you so easily. So it was quite hard. I do find it quite hard to talk about because I don't really talk about it that often. People to articulate. And I know that not many people have gone through this, apart from people that I know, sort of cousins and stuff. But my experience was very different because also my foster family wanted to adopt me, which they shouldn't have even made that sort of known to me, but they did. They complicated things quite a lot. Yeah. No, it is very hard for me to talk about.
Okay, well, I want to say first of all, thank you for sharing the part that you did share with us. We genuinely appreciate that. Now, I do have a couple of questions for you. My first question for you is, what is it like growing up? Was it like for you growing up in the foster care system, and how? Oh, first, before I want to tell you, we do have a lot of issues of white families taking black children here over in the United States, very similar to what's going on in London.
Do I have issues with that?
No, no, I interrupted myself with my first question to tell you, yes, we do have the same
Oh,
issue.
you do? Okay.
Yes. Okay, so can you talk to us about what it was like growing up in the foster care system and how it shaped your early understanding of your identity and belonging?
Oh, yeah, okay. So the people that I was brought up by, they totally encompass me in their family, to the point that they actually were calling me by their surname.
Okay.
My parents, and this is the thing that used to irritate me as I got to know my foster dad later on. He was quite pleased to tell me that I would call my mum and dad by their first names, and him and his wife by the name of mum and dad. Um,
Now, you have mentioned in both telling your story and at this time your relationship with your foster care father. Let's talk a little bit about that. You say it took a turn at your sister's death. What was that point that you felt like things started to change?
he just became quite scathing about my sort of background. He didn't seem to show any respect or towards my parents. He wasn't interested in sort of bringing our family together. He sort of basically ripped it apart. He wasn't supportive. He was very negative. And it was once I'd gone back in sort of in my 40s after not seeing him since I was in my 20s, I could see how his attitude was. He had forgotten that what he was doing was a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He acted as though he wasn't being paid to do it. So he really sort of blurred boundaries and edges where they shouldn't have been blurred.
Okay. Now, as you were growing up, did he have any of those issues then, or is this something that sort of reared its head? And could you see this coming on?
No, not at all. He sort of, as he got older, he became more conservative. He became more conservative. I mean, I'm sort of, I don't have any sort of contact with him now, but even going on his Facebook page, he's very right wing now, whereas before he wasn't. I mean, even if he ever wanted to give me a compliment, any member of the family to say that we were good looking, he would say, "Oh yeah, that person." Or if you were male, you look like a young Sydney Poitier. I mean, it's ridiculous. All the generalizations I didn't even think he was capable of.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was just really odd seeing someone that I had looked up to and had become very attached to. We had nothing in common at all.
Okay. And how did this begin to shape, your identity or how you saw yourself?
But I suddenly saw the whole operation for what it was. I mean, the way he speaks sometimes, it was almost like he had saved me from something. So, for example, I arrived, he said, sucking a dummy, a pacifier, yeah? And apparently, according to him, he'd taken that away and thrown it away on my first night, obviously not giving any account to the fact that it was probably soothing me.
That part.
I mean, they really pushed themselves into, put it this way, when I was growing up, I would cry. When I used to go home back to my mum, I would cry for them. And I spent a lot of time, I think, when I was younger, resenting the fact that they hadn't adopted me, because I grew up very attached. They were like they were like my parents. They were my parents. They had me during those formative years.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, I'm still here.
Okay. All right. I didn't know you were done. I thought you were still talking. Okay. Now, how did the foster care system, since you talk about your biological family, how did that affect your relationship with your biological family and your cultural roots?
Well, obviously, so my parents they came over from Ghana,
Hmm.
and I was brought up with a very British family with their traditions. So obviously, coming back to my family, it's completely different. It's a huge culture shock for me. I'm coming into a family where I don't speak the language, I don't eat the food,
And this
and
was your family, right?
say that again. Sorry.
This was your family, your
Yeah,
your
my family.
biological.
Yeah, my biological family. Yeah. And so what it's unfortunately done for me, I feel that the connection that I should have isn't there. It isn't there. I feel slightly sort of, and this is just from my immediate family, just slightly disassociated from my parents in a way that I shouldn't.
Okay.
Never from my siblings, but just from my parents.
Your biological parents, correct?
Mhm. I mean, my dad's dead now,
Okay.
and yeah, but definitely the relationship that I should have with my mum, I don't have. I don't think.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's shift back a little bit to your adoptive family. What motivated you in the beginning to reconnect with them after 20 years? And what were you hoping to find in that reconnection?
I was just at that point, I'd had in my mind such a pleasant experience of them when I was younger.
Hmm.
So when I heard that they'd been looking for me on Facebook, I was delighted. And for the first like 2 years of our relationship, it was okay. And then things changed when my sister died.
Okay, now let's talk about that for a little bit.
Okay,
Um,
so I was with them for 5 years consistently, and then 5 years on and off. And then my sister went to them when I came back home to live with my parents to attend school and everything. My sister went to them for a period of about months, and then it broke down because my foster mum got pregnant, and she couldn't control my sister, so they sent her back home.
okay.
And at the time, it wasn't in the sort of best circumstances. But when they reconnected with me, she was so excited, and she sort of got back in touch with them and actually saw them more than I did. And then it was just the way that everything sort of played up, her death and us all coming together.
Hmm.
My son used it as a chance to sort of, he was even trying to get me to call him dad and stuff like that. He would sign my birthday cards from mum and dad,
So
and
let
he
me
would
ask,
refer.
how did all of this affect your healing process and your perception of the past?
Oh, I'll tell you what, when Elizabeth, so basically when we fell out, because what happened was, so after my sister died, that sort of caused a big rift in our family, in my immediate biological family, and we all stopped sort of communicating properly. And my sister, who lived in the States, was coming over,
Hmm.
and she sort of told me, I didn't know she was coming over, but he sort of told me that she was coming over, but she didn't want to see me. And I was really shocked by that. And I just said to him, "When you see her, please do not talk about me, because that's the only thing that they had in common was me."
Hmm.
And he sort of, from there, he blocked me. We stopped talking. Yeah, and that's where it just all sort of went wrong. It doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. Now, how did your friends and family who had shared similar experiences support you during this time?
When this actually happened, I was so sort of, but you have to remember these were the people that had me from a baby.
Mhm.
So when that sort of relationship broke and it died, and that even I just went into this sort of state of grief for about. I remember just being in shock, and it was like, because after that I knew I was never going to speak to them again. I couldn't, because none of it made sense, and he wouldn't explain himself or his behaviour either.
He couldn't explain it probably. Okay. Can you tell us more about how talking through therapy helped you process such a significant part of your life?
Well, it was funny because during the time that sort of happened, there was a woman on Instagram that I followed.
Mhm.
She's from Nigeria, and she'd been through a sort of she'd been fostered as well. and her experience had broken down after her foster mum died, and she'd got into some negative conflict with the rest of her foster family. And they were having some sort of conference to do with British kids that had been fostered through this system, but I'd sort of missed it. But I sort of reached out to her and started talking to her about it. And then out of that, I started talking to cousins that had been through the same experience. And then I decided to get therapy
Mhm.
because it was really sort of eating away at me. And I didn't want it to, because I didn't want it to sort of define I didn't want it to be, I don't know, I just want to feel the way that I felt. It was horrible. No, it was horrible. It was, because it was sort of left unanswered. I couldn't speak to anyone about it. So I sort of had therapy with somebody who'd also been in the same situation, and sort of, yeah, just looked at, the whole experience, and just also actually did a lot of research on it as well.
Okay.
And yeah, and it was quite interesting. The stuff that I found on it was in America. There was very
Yeah.
little stuff about it in England. A lot of the papers I found were papers that I found in sort of American universities.
Yeah, I can believe that. I host another podcast called Dear Black Woman, and my one of my co-hosts lives over in London. It's the one who introduced me to you. Her name is Lauren. She actually told me some of the same things when we have podcasts and they're doing topics. They have to look it up, and most of the information that's available is in America.
And they don't talk about it here either. I've seen one documentary that a group of Nigerians did, and there's been a film. I mean, it's starting to crop up, but no one seriously talks about it.
That's not
It's no one sort of talks about the impact that it has on the kids, because you just don't. I don't know. It's really weird. I mean, I was lucky because my sort of African culture is so strong.
good.
I mean, there was no way I was going to get away from it.
But let me ask you something. What are some of the most surprising things you discovered about yourself as you began to heal from these experiences?
What? Oh, the fact that I could actually heal. The actual fact that I could actually get over it, because I always thought it would be part of me and who I was.
Hmm.
But rather than sort of allowing it to sort of be part of me in a negative way, I am taking that experience and I'm going to use it to sort of help, not even, yeah, sort of, no, not even help, but empower other people, because it's not a helping thing. Because I mean, I had no choice in the matter. It was something that was sort of put upon me. And now, rather than letting it just sort of sit stagnant, I'm going to use it.
I love that.
Well, no, because it was just sitting stagnant. It was just part of me before. And
It was it was a part of your trauma and it was holding you steady at a steadfast in your life. So I get exactly what you're saying. Now, how has this journey brought you clarity to your relationships and helped you better understand how others perceive you?
yeah, wow. See, that culturally messed up part of me sort of informed the person that I ended up marrying.
Okay.
um, and going into that relationship as I was back then 30 years ago, it was with a white person, and yeah, that didn't end well after 30 years. And even coming out of that and sort of seeing him how no seeing me how he saw me was also shocking. No, a lot of things have changed in the last 7 years.
Okay. Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier and just a few minutes ago also that the foster care practices that are common in West African cultures but are rarely addressed. What do you think how do you think these practices influence your identity and mental health in the long term?
Well, the fact that it's never sort of talked about, it's just one of these things that is just accepted that this is something, and it's not every member of every family goes through it. It's just
Yeah.
some of the kids go through it. But it's just the way that it's just expected that you just have to accept it.
Mhm.
It never really gets talked about. And also it's a lottery. Some people ended up with really good people and others didn't. I mean, I'm not saying mine were good at the time, but
Just things
later on,
changed over time. I got
yeah.
you.
I
Yeah.
mean, there were some situations where people refused to give kids back.
Mm.
There were some situations, I mean, obviously not with me, but and other people I don't know of, but some kids died. I mean, and no one talks about this at all.
Well, definitely have to give air to it. Now, your what message would you this is my last question by the way. What message would you share with others who've experienced similar foster care experiences about reclaiming their identity and the importance of healing?
Um, I think that you just never, I mean, you accept the fact that you are black and you need to find out as much information as you can about yourself, obviously, if that's available, your family. And if that's not available, it's about trying to sort of find out as much as you can about Black culture, whether it's Black Caribbean, Black African, but Black culture in general, which is what I did. I sort of, even though I had this strong cultural bond around me in my family home, it still made me explore other things. So I found out about things like Malcolm X. I started writing poetry about my identity. I just wanted to find out as much about Black culture, all types of Black culture as possible. And I think it's about staying informed and remembering that you're not going to find out about yourself necessarily from this culture that you're being brought up in, because a lot of it is hidden and a lot of it isn't explained. So you need to sort of be curious and sort of go out there and find out, ask questions and find out as much about yourself and about your culture as you can.
Okay, absolutely. I understand that. So, Ula, I want to say thank you for sharing your deeply personal and inspiring journey with us. Your story sheds light on the hidden struggles so many face and offers a beacon of hope to those still actually struggling to find their identities after the foster care system. So, again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Okay.
Thank you for having me, Cami.
Now, you guys, if you've experienced any of the type of trauma that Ula has gone through, anything that we discussed today, like childhood trauma, foster care system, loss, medical challenges, or even intergenerational pain, know that you're not alone and your story matters. Reach out, share with us, and let's continue this journey of healing together. You've just witnessed one person's journey from trauma to healing, a testament to strength, resilience, and the power of hope. In each story lies a reminder healing is personal, often difficult, but possible. As we continue through turning your trauma into your testimony, the healing journey, may each story offer a path, a perspective, or even just a moment of connection for your own journey. Thank you for being part of this healing journey.